Hello everybody there, and you're very welcome to today's interview preparation PowerPoint presentation. My name is Edward Cronny, and I will be leading you through this presentation in relation to your preparation skills. This is a comprehensive guide on how to actually approach a job interview there, and I'm standing in regards to Vivian Etziatze, who's a job coach in relation to this particular PowerPoint presentation. As you can see, the tutor's details are attached on this slide along with contact details. Now, the aims and objectives of today's session there is to clearly understand the interview process. We're going to be looking at it in 5 key steps. So we're going to be looking at understanding the interviews, preparation strategies associated with interview preparation, interview techniques, and then we'll be looking at communication skills associated with it also. And then number 5, there we're going to be looking at follow-ups and how to actually go about chasing up those very important key feedback points associated with it there. So let's look at each individual one of these now. So understanding interviews, learn the purpose and different types of interviews you may encounter as part of any job related process. This could be involving things such as I suppose even one-to-ones. There could be panel groups. There could be online interviews. There could be any number of interviews that could be used in securing any kind of position that is out there. Then we can be looking at preparation strategies, mastering company research, personal presentations, and pre-interview planning. Everyone that conducts an interview nowadays there have certain expectations of the person sitting across from them there, and one of them would be that they have done due diligence in relation to their research associated with the role and also the organization that you are applying for. So this step is essential in securing your position in and your best chance possible to actually get yourself that particular job interview. Or that job. Next up there, we're going to look at interview techniques and applying the STAR method to answering behavioral questions effectively there. So we'll be looking at the STAR model in due course as well. So kind of bear with us in relation to that. And it is a very useful technique to help, I suppose, prep yourself for interviews, and kind of at least you will then have a framework that you can work off. Then we have communication skills, developing strong verbal and non-verbal communications during the interview. Having the ability to actually communicate effectively is so essential. And we do find that people have that capacity and also have rehearsed I suppose, as much as possible before the interview itself. It will have the best chance possible to actually secure that position. So having the capacity to communicate effectively is so important in an interview process. And then follow-ups, how to ask questions and conduct purposeful follow-ups there. So most organizations will ask you to actually, do you have any questions? It's very important that I think that you actually have a couple of questions in your back pocket there that you can ask to ensure that you're showing interest and that you have I suppose something to say in relation to the position. Maybe even asking key questions about the role that you're actually applying for. What does it involve? What does it entail? Who will you be working under? So forth and so on. So I think that's a very important aspect as well, because it just goes to show that you are actually really interested in actually applying for this particular role. This particular role. So the purpose of an interview. So for employers, the interview gives employers a critical opportunity to evaluate whether you're possess the right skills, experience, and cultural fit for the organization. They access your qualifications, problem-solving ability, as well as you're working within their team. For the candidates themselves, the interview is your chance to determine if the job, company culture, and the role truly aligns with your career goals, values. You can evaluate goals, opportunities, working environments, and whether the position matches what you're looking for. Now, as I said, it's not always a one size benefits. It's not a win-lose situation in relation to interviews there. For candidates, it's as much a role to assess the organization as vice versa, because it really does need to be a kind of a best fit approach. If you don't like something about the organization, or you don't like something about the manager or their ethos, things along those lines there, maybe you could take something positive from the interview itself there, maybe practicing the skills of actually getting through an interview might be all you take from it there, especially if the organization isn't in line with how you want to move forward with your career, but also for the employer as well. That there has to be kind of a give and take in relation to it. They're assessing you in relation to will you fit well into their organization as well. So it's both sides summing each other up and see if there is common ground that can be found and if it is indeed the right fit for both parties. Now, the types of interviews, as we were talking about earlier on in relation to the aims and objectives. So, number one, you have your skills based interviews. So, focusing on technical abilities and job specific competencies. You may be asked to demonstrate specific skills, complete some tasks, and solve practical problems related to the role. As I said, these are very, very common based nowadays there because I think a lot of our organizations want to ensure that even if someone has the qualifications, it doesn't necessarily mean that they actually have the skills required to do the roles that they are looking to have people fit into. So, kind of having the capacity to actually test that skills base is very important. So, skills based interviews are very commonplace there, and kind of it is something that is, I suppose, it is synonymous with for job seekers nowadays. And then behavioral based interviews examine past behavior to predict future performance. Questions typically start with tell me about when and a time when, and require specific examples from your past work history. Now, as I said there, it's a little bit more along the lines of what most people would think is synonymous with interviews, and it's that kind of sometimes one to one, sometimes a group, sometimes a panel, but they are asking you for, I suppose, a backstory associated with your career trajectory to date. Now, preparing for the interviews, the three critical stages: the pre interview, research, prepare materials, practice responses, and plan logistics. Then we have during the interview, communicating effectively, demonstrating values, and engaging effectively. Then post interviews, sending thank you notes and follow up notes as well there to kind of see if indeed you actually can chase that job a little bit further. So pre-interview is very, very important. Research the organization, research who's going to be in the panel, start preparing your material in relation to it there. Like a lot of organizations will send out a bit of a handbook and stating about what kind of areas they will be looking at in relation to your job application. So if there is something associated with your with the role that you're going into, like I suppose if you have experience of safe pass or manual handling, things along those lines, maybe you can highlight some of those. If there's skills based stuff, that like if you got communication skills or if you have IT skills, these things will be coming to the forefront in relation to it and anticipating what it is that they're looking for. And that's a very important thing, is a very important element of it as well. So practice responses. So make sure that you actually do due diligence in relation to this there. Practice what could be a potential interview process. Maybe you could have a friend or a family member, or even if you wanted to utilize the likes of ChatGPT that on your phone, which actually has that functionality on it there that will actually operate as an interview person, asking you very key questions associated with there, so you can practice your skills as you go. And next up then, during that interview, they're communicating effectively, demonstrating the values, and engaging effectively. As I said, they're not there. Nobody's there to actually try and trip you up or make you feel bad or things along those lines. There, if you actually approach it like a communication, like a regular communication, they want to know you and you want to know them. If you approach from that perspective, there, it's very difficult to go wrong there. But again, you can prep for that there and anticipate what questions they might be asking you. And of course, all interviewers there, um, people who are actually participating there want to actually get that job. So kind of follow up, chase it up there. And one of the key questions I always like to ask at the end of an interview is when do you think you will let me know in relation to whether or not I have the job or not? Is it going to be a week? Is it going to be 2 weeks? Because if it actually cascades into the week after week after week and you still haven't heard anything, then it's probably worth reaching out and kind of saying, listen, thank you for the opportunity of the interview. And could you actually give me any follow up in relation to it to see if I actually got the job or not? And there's no harm in doing that. I always find there's no harm in doing that in any way, shape, or form. Now, the pre-interview preparation checklist there, company research. As again, I know don't like to be covering old ground over and over again, but I do think this is very, very important. So, investigating the organization's mission, values, recent news, and industrial position. I can get an awful lot of that off the organization's website itself. And do a general Google search, and you'd be surprised what pops up in relation to that there. Follow them on LinkedIn and see what they're posting and what they're engaged in. And kind of, there's a huge amount of information you can actually get from open source places like on the internet. And again, you can also use the likes of AI, ChatGPT, Manus, cloud organizations like that to do a company report on the company in question. And then professional attire. Select appropriate, well-fitting clothes that match the company's culture. And a lot of people kind of will say that does it really matter? Well, yeah, kind of does, unfortunately. We are living in an era where optics is everything, and how people present themselves will it allows you to control the narrative by which people see you. If you go into an interview there well presented, if you have a suit or a tie or shirt or whatever it's going to be, or even a nice a nice blouse or whatever it's going to be, depending on who you are, if you actually make the effort, it will show volumes. And again, you're controlling the narrative by which people see you. If you go in not prepared, not dressed well, there it says a lot about you to the actual the interviewer, even without one word being spoken. So you want to be able to control the narrative about how they interpret you and interpret you as much as actually what you actually say. So professional attire, I think, is an easy way of actually kind of swaying people one way or the other in relation to it. It happens in marketing all the time, and always remember once you actually set foot outside the house, you're actually marketing yourself on an ongoing basis as well. And then practical responses. Rehearse answers to common questions used in the STAR model. Okay, so kind of again, use the models that are readily available to you, kind of integrate them into the likes of ChatGPT and see what can come out. And then you can just get an automated AI generator there to actually kind of simulate an interview setting, and then you're practicing. You're anticipating what is most likely to come down the line in relation to an interview question. And prepare materials. Bring 2 copies of your CV, reference, contact information, and relevant certification. So bring a couple of copies of these things. And if there is going to be a panel interview, bring one for everyone. Okay, just as I said, it's always a good thing to do in relation to that. But I would always kind of say as well, when you're actually practicing your notes and you're practicing your responses, bring them with you in the morning as well. Now, don't bring them into the interview by any stretch of the imagination, but do take every minute that you have, every opportunity you have there, that you go over and refresh yourself in relation to the content that you've rehearsed for the interview itself. And then question ready. Develop 3 to 5 thoughtful questions to ask the interviewers about the role of the company. And that kind of shows, again, we mentioned it earlier on, that you have an interest in the role outside of just the interview process itself there. You want to know a little bit about the organization, maybe a little bit where you would be working, where would you be working with, when's the role going to start, is it going to be a fixed term contract, is it an ongoing contract? Key questions like that there can really solidify your understanding of the role, but also showcase to the interviewer themselves there that you've genuinely done your due diligence and research in relation to this particular role. Now, researching the company. Why research matters. So company research demonstrates genuine interest, helps you tailor responses, identify if the role fits your goals, and enables you to ask informed questions that impress the interviewers. So yeah, it's a very important part of this whole process. You don't want to go in blind. You don't want to go in not aware of key elements of the organization. I've actually heard a story one time of a person being asked in the questions of what did you think of this person mentioned the name of the company, and the person being interviewed was actually, who is that? They didn't even know who the name of the company that they were in the interview with. So that didn't go down too well, as you can well imagine. So how to research effectively. Visit company website and review about us and news sections. Check social media profiles and recent posts. Read industry news and company press releases. As I said, all you have to do is Google any one of these key points there and it'll pop up. Even copy and paste it directly off this PowerPoint presentation and you'll be surprised at how much information pops up. Review a Glassdoor and employee reviews, and examine the company's competitors and market positioning as well. Just that'll give you a very clear idea of who the organization are, what they're about, what their values are, and it'll give you a kind of a snapshot of whether or not that you believe that you will fit into this or not. Now, behavioral interviews. Master the STAR method. So, behavioral interviews evaluate past behavior to predict future performances using the STAR method framework to structure compelling responses that showcase your capabilities. So, what does STAR stand for? It stands for situation, task, action, and results. So, situation describes the context or challenge you faced. Task explains your specific responsibility or goals. Actions details the step you took to address the situation. And then results share the outcome and what you have learned. Okay, so kind of that's, and I think that's a very important part in relation. And it's a great kind of framework for you to actually start building around your body of knowledge associated with the behavioral interview approach. Now, guys, we're going to have a look at 10 common interview questions that might pop up. This is a little bit difficult to actually really lock down because different roles and different responsibilities will generate different questions. So what we have here is a list of 10 questions that are fairly generic and might pop up at some point in relation to your interview journey, especially when you're trying to get a bit of momentum going in relation to the process of doing multiple interviews, maybe simultaneously. So number up there, tell me about yourself. And that's fairly commonplace there. And what they're actually trying to do in relation to that one there is get a kind of I suppose, a clear idea of who you are, a little bit about your background, and see if they can get a bit of a picture associated with you, and kind of from a cultural perspective, like not just talking about kind of cultural, kind of Irish or international kind of perspective, kind of whether you actually fit the culture of the organization as well. Next up there, describe yourself in 3 words, which is I think is very important in relation to that there, kind of looking, identifying your strengths. And this could be identified in your CV as well there. When we sometimes talk about our strengths, our key strengths, it could be resilient, flexible, adaptable, any number of things. But also it's important at this point there to actually kind of highlight maybe if you have any kind of key weaknesses associated with the role that you're worried about. And this would be a good point to actually bring that in as well there, because no interviewer believes that the person sitting across them is absolutely perfect. Maybe they actually kind of do need a little bit of work, and it's absolutely fine to address that. So why this company is number 3 in relation to that one there. Why did you show interest in them? They want to find out why you actually applied for the role. Was there something in the job that you actually liked? Was there something that resonated with you? Something that you think might be actually kind of beneficial to you as a person moving forward in your own career? So they want to get to the bottom of that and kind of explore that a little bit more. So why are you suitable? And this is a very important one there. So this is where you're going to really sell yourself in relation to your skills and your capabilities associated with this role. Kind of really flesh that out from there, and kind of ensure that you have a couple of key answers to this particular question. Make sure you rehearse this one there, kind of. And again, like, you can flesh that out with your jobs coach, and to ensure that you've actually got a couple of really good answers to that question. Number 5, dealing with angry customers. This is especially if you're dealing with a retail job, or where is a customer facing role. This is going to be very problematic there, because organizations really want to ensure that they have people who can navigate the customer journey effectively there. So kind of having a bit of a story maybe associated with how, if a time in the past that you've dealt with an irate customer, that actually ensure that the customer went away satisfied, or if the customer went away feeling a little bit better about the situation. You can't always make everyone happy, of course, but what they're looking for here is an example of a time that you went above and beyond to ensure that a customer had the best customer care possible. And I think that's what they're looking for in relation to asking a particular question like that. So 6, your vision. So kind of share career goals and your show growth while aligning with company operations. So I think it's very important there that you actually kind of are showcasing what it is that you want from the role and what you want from your career, especially an organization who wants to actually take on people and actually grow them with the organization and maintain them. Because one key thing that a lot of people might not tell you is that organizations don't want a transient workforce. They really don't. They want to actually get people, keep them, grow them, develop them. That's when they become a kind of a very valuable resource for an organization there. So if they can actually kind of see something in you that they believe is worth an investment, then you could be onto something very important then that might actually lead you to a really, really, really lucrative career. Next up, there are 7 teamwork examples. Describe collaborations, your role, and the position and the positive outcomes achieved together. Kind of again, that could be a number of things. That could be participation in a football club or a team or anything along those lines. There, kind of like if you worked in a kind of an organization that actually were part of a team working on a particular project, you highlight that and showcase that. But again, if you don't have that, it could be related to a sports club. Number 8 there. So tight deadlines situation. So what they're looking for here is people who can actually work under pressure and are happy to work under pressure. They have no real problems in relation to it. And it's always kind of a demand of organizations that their staff sometimes go above and beyond the call of duty to ensure that particular deadlines can be met. Not all the time, of course, but they do want to see a little bit of adaptability and flexibility in relation to your capacity to deliver on deadlines. Number 9 there. So why hire you? This is a big one there. That's I think that a lot of people there struggle with this particular one. They shy away from it there for some reason or another there. So you can summarize your unique values. I think is a very important point in relation to this there. That's kind of relevant experiences and enthusiasm for the role. I think should be shown through on this one as well. There, it is a very important point, and it does tend to put people on the spot. So anticipate this particular question there, and make sure you have something to actually showcase. You're going to sell your point. You sell yourself at this point. And then your questions. Ask thoughtful questions about your role expectations, the team culture, and the growth within the organizations. We mentioned that already, that it's very important that you show interest in the role beyond the interview process itself there, kind of asking a little bit about more about the organization, about the culture, about the teamwork. And again, going back to what we said earlier on there, when you can expect this role to be awarded, so that you're not waiting around for too long. Yeah. Now, we mentioned this a little bit earlier on there, the XYZ method. Tell me about yourself. So, what does X stand for? So, X is present. I'm currently in a current role or with a company and where my key responsibilities are. So, kind of, it's very simple. They're actually kind of what's your present situation there, who I am, what my current role is there, is it full time, is it temporary, how like so they just want to know a little bit more about you in relation to kind of, I suppose, your current capabilities. Next up there, your past. So I have relevant experiences and specific skills that prepare me for this opportunity. So again, you're actually tapping back into your actually capacity within your old roles to ensure that you are up to speed in relation to everything associated with this particular position. Future. I am looking for a career goal. I'm looking for a new opportunity where I can contribute and grow with a company. Personally, I've used this one many times myself there, and it always actually is a good go-to um, solver within an organization, especially when they look at you as a potential candidate for a role. They can actually showcase that, my God, this person really does have vision and future focus, and that's exactly what we want in this organization. So important, avoid personal information related to 9 grounds of discrimination. Keep your responses professional, concise, 60 to 90 seconds long, and tailored to the specific job requirements. Okay, so make sure that you know the actually 9 grounds of discrimination as well before you go into the role. Your job coach will highlight those in due course. Now, quick note, we're nearly halfway through the slides now at the minute, but this is going back to what I mentioned earlier on there, a little bit of reiteration for want of a better term there. So, mastering the art of the job interview. And did you know that 54% of recruiters report a candidate's image, demure, and cultural fit account for 50% of their hiring decisions? So first impressions truly do matter in today's competitive jobs market. Again, this is going back to marketing in 101. I said a lot of my background was in marketing. And if you can control the narrative by which people see you, then you control the reality, the reality in way that they actually interpret you. So it's very important that we think about this. Humans are really prone to the push-pull factor associated with marketing. And again, if you're actually going out for interviews, what you actually are doing is marketing yourself. So, what should we actually factor into our decision making process when we're actually looking at making that first impression? Well, first off, their professional presence. So, your demure and confidence sets the tone for the entire interview process. Arrive with positive energy and enthusiasm for this opportunity. So, be excited and showcase the fact that you're excited, but also have your professional hat on, for want of a better term. There, you actually kind of want to impress, but you have to show that you're actually eager to take the role up as well. Next up there, visual connection. Maintain natural eye contact while listening and speaking. This demonstrates confidence and genuine interest in the conversation. Now, that can be quite difficult if it's a bit of a panel interview. You have to actually spread your eye contact around, which is also very important. You can't focus on one and isolate the other two. So it's very important that you factor that in. Dress for success. Professional attire communicates respect and the opportunity, understanding of the workplace. Attention to detail really is important. Now, I'm not saying we have to go out with suits and ties and things along those lines. That's not necessarily always the way it has to be anymore, but it can be a little bit I suppose off-putting if there's been no effort put into present your own personal presentation for the interview itself there. So just always be aware of that. It can be a key concern. Now, dressing for success, what does it look like? Now, I mentioned it earlier on there. Do we have to go completely suited and booted? Not necessarily the case. Like a full kind of outfit nowadays will cost you quite a substantial amount of money there. So, like, what are we talking about in relation to this? So, let's spend a bit of time and just discuss this one. So, professional attire guidelines. Your appearance communicates professionalism before you even speak. Choose attire that aligns with the organizational culture while maintaining a polished and professional standard. Research the company's dress code and culture. Ensure clothing is clean, pressed, and well fitted. Limit accessories to maintain professional focus. And choose neutral colors for conservative environments. So again, guys, it's a kind of a case of you have to do your due diligence, do a bit of research on the organization there to see what is the social norm within their organizational culture. If it is pinstripe suits, then guess what? It's going to be pinstripe suits. But if it is just slacks and light casual, then align with that as well. Do your due diligence, do a little bit of research, and actually take it from there. Now, I know we're drumming this nail home fairly tight these days there, but guys, professional attire standards is so important when it comes to actually securing that role. So, what does it actually look like? And what is a professional standard? So, there's business formal there, traditional suits and ties for conservative industries, navy and coral suits. Charcoal suits with crisp white shirts convey authority and professionalism. Is it a, it kind of looks like something from Mad Men, from that old Netflix series there, and it kind of does. It kind of does. And do those organizations still exist? They absolutely do, and they have a very locked down culture that demands that people within their organization dress to impress. And again, conveys authority, which is kind of a very important thing. Again, controlling the narrative by which people see you. Next up there we have business casual, a blazer with dressed pants or shirts. Avoid jeans and casual wear. Professionals separate demonstration respect for the interviewers while showing a personality. So you can actually kind of bring a little bit of personality forward there, but again, you have to actually kind of show an element of respect as well for the actual people who are actually sitting across from you, that you show that you've done a bit of due diligence in relation to putting yourself together for that interview. And then attention to detail. Again, guys, you have to be well groomed, minimal, maybe aftershaves and smells. Make sure your nails are cut, polished shoes, and so forth and so on. It kind of just shows that you have an attention to detail without even communicating that, without even saying it that you have attention to detail. They'll be able to make that distinction themselves. Now, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about communicating effectively. It's one of uh, these key times that you're going to actually be able to actually communicate in a cohesive fashion. You're trying to impress people, so they're expecting answers to very specific questions. So your ability to answer those questions will be I suppose it'll be the difference between you getting the job and not getting the job. So having a communication strategy to effectively communicate is essential moving forward there. And we will sometimes get pushback in relation to saying this or even bringing this up, because people will say, well, I can communicate. I communicate every single day. I talk to my friends. I talk to my family, and that's fine. And but we do need to practice a little bit about communicating to people that we might not know or might not be familiar with, or who may not be familiar with ourselves. They might not get that we have a quirky sense of humor or that we're all personality. So we need to actually communicate in a fashion that actually showcases that we can indeed do the job at hand and indeed fit into the organizational culture that they've spent maybe sometimes maybe years developing. So let's have a look at communicating effectively. So first off there, guys, we have to look at active listening. So focus completely on what the interviewers is saying without formal responses while they speak. So don't be interrupting the people when they're actually talking to you. Kind of maybe try and ensure that they have completed speaking before you answer a question. So because it is important that they actually have their opportunity to speak as well and ask the questions that they want to speak. Sometimes we can jump in and anticipate what the answer might be, and answer something that they weren't specifically answering or asking. Number two, clear articulation. Speak confidently at a moderate pace. So don't rush. Don't be actually rushing through the thing. They're going to give you plenty of time to speak. So make sure that you use that time effectively and articulate clearly and avoid filter words like and like. Okay, kind of these, as I was sometimes referred to them as pause phrases. Sometimes we actually do. Just did one there. Sometimes we can actually land on these while we're thinking about the next sentence to come along. So they're sometimes referred to as pause phrases as well. So try to avoid them. Be aware of them if you can, and try to move the conversation on as best as possible. And then always remember, guys, the STAR method. Structured responses used in situations, task, action, results to showcase your problem solving ability. And then lastly there, guys, going back to our old point I keep coming up again there, your thoughtful questions, making sure that you actually have the opportunity to have your piece, ask relevant questions to the role, ask about your role within the organization, what it might look like, who might be actually who will you be working with. Questions like this are kind of really kind of going to solidify you in their mind's eye and give you the best chance possible of securing that particular role. Now, guys, we're really getting to the point now. We're driving the last few nails home in relation to this preparation process for the interviews themselves there. So, essential interview preparation there. So, before you arrive, course dress to impress, dress to impress even, excuse me. Choose professional attire that matches company culture. So again, going back to my point, or if it's pinstripe suits, that's the norm, then you do the same. If it's smart casual, then you do the same. So be on time, very important. Arrive 10 minutes early to demonstrate reliability, very important in relation to kind of your approach there. Um, some people can rock up in a sweat and in a pant because they couldn't find parking, or they didn't leave early enough. And that's kind of what I always kind of say, factoring risk into the equation. If you have to get to somewhere at a certain time, don't aim for being there at a certain time. Aim for being there maybe a half an hour, even 40 minutes early. That means you can go into a nice coffee shop, sit down, have a coffee, relax, go over your notes, and then wander into the interview there calm and well thought through and well rested as well. Not in a panic. Very important. So bring documentation, 2 copies of your CV, relevant certifications. Again, if you know there's going to be more than actual 2 people in the panel, by all means bring a few for them as well. And then reference contacts. Have 2 or 3 professional references from professional people there to help you along the way in relation to it. Now, sometimes you can actually have that in your CV that references are available on request, or if it is required, then of course you need to bring them there. But if it is something that you can address at a later stage there, by all means do so. And then again, prepare your questions. I know it sounds like I'm going over and over this point a lot, but it's very important that we get that clear in your head, that asking a few questions really shows confidence and an interest in the role and the organization itself. Now, I know I've spoken a lot about this already there in relation to your thoughtful questions that you're going to ask in the interview itself there. So I thought we'd do a slide in relation to that there. So what questions could you potentially ask? Always remember, guys, there that this is a two-way kind of approach to actually kind of your role within it, and whether or not you're going to fit within their organization as well. So they're sizing you up and you're sizing them up. And one of the key ways of you doing both is asking some very relevant questions, not just to impress the interviewers, but to actually get some relevant information associated with the role itself there. So number one there, performance metrics. How will my performance be measured and by whom? What does success look like in this role? I think that's a very good question, because in most organizations there is an element of measurability in relation to the tasks and roles and responsibilities within the organization. So having the capacity to understand that you are trying to figure out what success looks like in this role at this early stage says a lot about you. Next up there, number 2, the success criteria themselves. How do you measure success on the job? What are the key indicators for strong performance? Is there, sometimes we refer to them as KPIs, key performance indicators. Is there any of these associated with the roles, and what do they look like? What are they actually measuring? And then the daily responsibilities. What does a typical day look like? Can you walk me through the core responsibilities of this job role? I think that's a very good um, question to ask there, because you're trying to actually dig down a little bit further into what a day-to-day stuff is going to look like. But it also kind of showcases them there that they can actually bring their enthusiasm to the table as well about what this role is all about, what's it for, what's it designed for, because every job does have a job design associated with it. And then career development. What opportunities are there for training and progression? How does the company support professional growth? Because if you are coming into an organization and you're going to commit your time and effort to this role, you want to get maybe something more from it than just remuneration, just your salary. If they do indeed take you on a journey of career development, then this could be a start of a really good, lucrative opportunity that you don't want to pass on. And maybe if you commit time and effort to this role and job, then they could actually grow you, turn you into manager, senior manager, and is there a trajectory for that within the organization? This would be a great question to ask, and great to know as well. And then next stops there. Will there be a second interview? If so, when? And what's the notification period associated with with this particular next step? So again, when will we know? When will we actually know who got the job, and move this whole process forward a little bit? Now, the interview is over. We've all gone home. Everyone's gone about their busy schedule again there. So kind of what happens next? The post-interview actions. Well, of course, send a thank you email. It's very, very important that you actually do this there. It's keeping the lines of communication open, but it's also recognizing that the interviewer's time and effort in relation to this whole process. And it shows an element of gratitude and respect again. And again, what you're doing there is you're controlling the narrative by which people see you. They're going to, if they're on the fence, between two or three candidates and an email comes in from you and not from the other two, you never know what that might do in relation to pushing you over the fence. That could be just the little extra that gets you that position over somebody else who actually didn't send the email. So thank you email. Send a professional thank you email within 24 hours to the lead interviewer. Express appreciation and reiterate your interest in the position. Next up there, self-reflection. Reflect on your performance to identify strengths and areas for improvement. Note what went well and what you do differently next time around. It's very important that we actually understand that there, kind of like what did you do, what did we do well, what we didn't do good, and if there is an opportunity again, maybe if there's a second interview, this is where we'd address that particular point. And then request feedback. If not selected, politely request feedback to help better prepare for future interviews and improve your approach. This is essential feedback because if they have a grading matrix where you were marked out of 10 on certain criteria, if you can see that you're doing really well on one criteria but low on others, it gives you ground to improve. You can actually focus on that the next time around and see if you can score higher the next time around. Don't ever think this as just a negative. Every interview is an opportunity to learn something about yourself and also an opportunity to grow as well. You mightn't get the first one, you mightn't even get the second one, but the third one, you're a good shot. And we see this as well, not just in job interviews there, but if you're ever involved in the tendering process for contracts down the line, if you're going for growing your career and you're self-employed or something along those lines there, having this ability to request feedback is essential in relation to that as well. Now, we've already covered a lot of ground in relation to the interview process, especially the physical in-person type ones. But we'll now live in the digital era where an awful lot of these interviews take place online. So I thought we'd actually kind of spend a little bit of time and talk about the virtual interview process and what success would look like in relation to conducting a successful interview process online. So setting yourself up for success. So a professional space. Set up a space with an uncluttered professional background that reflects your professionalism. Now, I think that nearly every Zoom platform there is out there nowadays there has a virtual background option. So if you are in a space that you're kind of like needs a bit of work or whatever, kind of are you worried about people seeing the inside of your house, just select a professional background from the multitude of backgrounds that are available on Zoom and on Teams so that you don't have to worry about that. Okay, technical preparation, practice using Zoom, Teams, or other platforms, ensuring equipment is fully charged and connected. There's nothing worse than actually running out of battery halfway through your interview process there, or the lines become unstable, things along those lines. So just make sure everything is checked before you actually participate in an online interview. Internet stability kind of goes without saying. We want to make sure that there's not too many people using the internet simultaneously. If there is a lot of people on the internet in the house there, maybe ask them just to actually log off for 15 to 20 minutes or something along those lines so that you can actually get the full broadband experience for your interview preparation. And then minimize distraction. Ensure that no interruptions from children or pets or backgrounds, and noise, anything along those disrupts the interview. Just get a quiet space, ask everyone to leave you alone for a few minutes and conduct your interview. If there is pets or dogs, make sure you actually put them outside the room and close the door behind you, and so that they can actually they can scratch away all they want there, but they're not getting access to you until the interview is completed. And of course, then have your documentations ready for sharing. You can share them on screen. Learn how to share a document as well, very important. Have your CV ready to go, any qualifications and references ready to hand. And then camera focus. Look into the webcam. Very important. It's nothing worse than actually kind of jumping around the screen all the time. I know kind of when I'm looking at doing these presentations as well, I'm kind of looking at the slides, I'm looking at a few different things on screen there. But when you're actually talking to someone directly, it's important that you're focusing steadily ahead and kind of not your eyes are darting all over the screen. I know we do a little bit of it in this because we're looking at slides and so forth and so on there, but I suppose minimizing that would say a lot about you as a person. And lastly, guys, there we have your complete interview checklist. So we have our presentations. So practice your star answers in front of the mirror. Conduct thorough company and location research, and get good rest and eat a nutritious breakfast. Make sure that you're, because the last thing you want is your tummy rumbling in the middle of the presentation. You want to actually be fully rested and kind of comfortable as you possibly can be. You're never going to be fully comfortable. It is a big deal going for an interview there, but you can minimize the amount of stress you're going through by actually resting, eating well, and giving yourself plenty of time to actually put your best foot forward. And I think that when you actually make that effort and put you're suited and booted, you do feel better about yourself there. So give it that time there. Professional presentation. Next up there. Be well groomed and dressed for success. Arrive 10 to 15 minutes early. And bring two copies of your CV and relevant certification. Of course, there again, make that preparation. Do it the night before. Have that in a little folder ready to go, so you're not chasing it on the morning of the interview. And then communication, smile and maintain good eye contact. Give a confident handshake and remember people's names as much as possible. Okay, always trying to, even if it's just first names, and try and remember that at the bare minimum. And then listen carefully and don't interrupt. Give people the time to actually answer questions, and then respond with well constructed, confident questions that add to the whole interview process itself. And then professional behaviors. Have references at hand there. 3 if possible. Always talk to your job coach about that there, whether they're relevant to the jobs that you're going for there. They'll actually advise you very well in relation to that there. And then be conscientious of positive body language there. As I said there, guys, if you're worrying what to do with your hands, everyone does do, collapse them and just put them over your tummy. It's a good place to put them. Some people sit in their hands. I think it's just grabbing your hands like that there and putting them there is always a good thing to do in relation to that. But always remember, guys, be polite, friendly from the reception. Only sit when asked. Don't fidget. Remember to sell unique values and always appreciate and thank the interviewers for their time. Now, that last point there is very important. I have a little rule that I think is very important. You should always be on best behavior when going to an interview within a half-mile radius of the venue or location that you're going to. Because if you're in a coffee shop and maybe you're seeing a friend and you're actually having a bit of banter and so forth and so on there, and you're actually maybe behaving a little badly or things along those lines. God forbid that the person that was in the queue behind you in the queue for the coffee is the person who's actually going to be sitting in front of in an interview in 20 minutes or half an hour from then. So we've heard of that happening many times there. So kind of just be aware of that as well there. So I have the half mile rule. Always be on best behavior when you're in a half mile of the location that you're going to, just be on the safe side. So guys, that's our PowerPoint presentation for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something positive from it. Again, your job coach will actually advise you more specifically in relation to the jobs that you're going for. And I just want to take the time now to wish you the very best of luck in relation to the jobs and the careers that you are chasing. And I hope it all comes in your favor. Thanks so much for your time. Bye bye, guys.